In this video, we are going to learn how to build a chatbot in .NET using a local model. The idea is the following. Instead of paying for using an AI model like OpenAI, Claude, or Gemini, we can use a local model, which is an artificial intelligence model that is going to run on our machine and we can use for free. So for that, we're going to use Ollama. Ollama is a software that allows us to manage and run different local models like Qwen, Gemma, etc. So let's do that. Let's see that we're here in Ollama.com, and the first thing that we need to do is to install Ollama. For that, we can come here to download Ollama and we can choose our OS. In my case, it is Windows, therefore I can copy this and I can open PowerShell by saying Window key R, PowerShell, OK. We will have this terminal and we can paste this command, and this will install Ollama. Now in my case I already have that installed, so I don't have to execute this command. Now after that we can choose the local model that we're going to use. In my case I will use Qwen, so I can come here and say Qwen, and in my case I will use Qwen 3.5. Now we could use Qwen 3.6, but in my case, sadly, my machine is not that powerful and therefore, although it runs it will be a little bit slow. So instead of that, I will just use 3.5. So let's come here, and again here we have a family of models. Now, the bigger the size, the more powerful it is, but also it will be more demanding on GPU power. Therefore, what I will do is that I will use this one, the 2B version, which means 2 billion parameters. So I will copy this from here and I will come to a terminal. So Window key R one more time. I can say CMD or I can use PowerShell if I want to. Paste this here. And in my case, I will say think false because it will be faster if we deactivate thinking mode. Now, of course, if it cannot reason, then it cannot solve advanced problems, but in our case, it is fine. So enter. Now, if you haven't already downloaded this model, it will first download it and then run it. So we will have to wait a few seconds. Now we're here. So let me say something like, what is 5 plus 7, for example, and we're going to see that we have this answer here. It is not very bright. All right, awesome. Alright, so we're going to integrate this in our .NET application. So let me come here to Visual Studio and let's see that we have this console application that I just created. Therefore, let's get to work. But before that, if you want to learn more about how to integrate artificial intelligence and agents in .NET applications, buy my course today. In this course, we will go from scratch integrating artificial intelligence in .NET applications, learning different concepts, different techniques, and solving different problems. You can access my course with a discount in the description of this video. Alright, so back to the tutorial. So the first thing that we need is to come here, right click on here because I want to install a NuGet package. So we need to install Ollama Sharp. Let me click on here, install, accept. Alright, let's close this. Now, we have already built a chatbot in the past, so we're going to go a little bit quicker this time. So let me say console right line, AI, hello, you can type your questions or press enter to exit. This is a message for the user. Now we need to use an IChatClient. The IChatClient is an interface that allows us to work with different ChatClient models. So client here, new Ollama API client, and here we have to put the URL in which the Ollama server is running. In our case, we're going to use localhost. So let me say this one, localhost, and this port, which is the default port for working with Ollama. Here we have to put the model. So let me come here. I want to say here by Ollama list to see the list of my models. And in my case, of course, as we said, we're going to use this one. So let me just paste this here. Now this option that we had here, to make it a little bit faster, this think false, we have to put it in a chat options. So let me say var options, new chat options, additional properties, this and think false. Alright, so the idea of chat options is that it allows us to modify the behavior of the chatbot by setting parameters. For example, something that we could say is that we can limit the length of the output of the model. But we're not going to do that. So let's continue. Now we're going to put here a list of messages. The idea is that LLMs or AI models are stateless. Therefore, we have to pass them the context of the conversation so that it can understand what it's talking about. For example, if I ask about what is the capital city of Dominican Republic, and it answers Santo Domingo, and then I ask, and what about the US or what about Canada? The only way for it to know what we mean by saying, and what about the US, is if it has context. Therefore, we're going to have a list of messages that is going to represent that context. That is, we're going to put here all of the messages that the user has written and also all of the answers of the AI, so that every time we communicate with the AI, we're going to pass that information to the model, and therefore the model will understand the context and it will be more useful. So something else that we can pass is a system prompt. The idea of the system prompt is that it is an instruction that is going to tell the AI how to behave. For example, where the AI have to be concise, whether all of the answers must be in English, etc. Alright, so let me say here, var general system prompt, you are an assistant that answers general questions, you must respond in English, keep your answers brief. Alright. Now let me put this message in this list of messages, because that is part of the messages that we want to send to the AI. So messages, add new chat message, we need a chat role. A chat role is basically what kind of message we're sending to the AI. For example, it is a message from the AI, then we use assistant. It is a system message or system prompt, then we use system. It is about invoking a function because the AI can invoke functions from our C# application, then it is a tool message. And finally, we have user, which is a message from the user. Now in our case, we're going to use system. So general system prompt, semicolon here. While true, I need to have here an infinite loop because I want the user to go back and forth with the AI. Now let me say here, foreground color blue, this is the message of the user. Var input console read line reset color. If input is empty, then we break from the infinite loop. Then now that we have the user's message, we're going to add it to the list of messages so that it can serve as context. So chat message, chat role, now in this case it will be user, and here the message, which is in the input variable. Now let me say here console read line now for the answer of the AI. Now, what I like to do in this kind of scenarios is to use streaming. The idea of streaming is that, just like we saw here in this application, just like we saw here, you remember that we're seeing as the AI was typing this answer, right? This is good because it can make the application seems faster, because the user doesn't have to stare to a blank screen while the AI is answering the user's question. Therefore, in order to have good user experience, we're going to use streaming. Now, since we're going to use streaming, it means that we're going to get answers from the AI in a partial manner. Therefore, we're going to say here var updates, and we're going to have this list of chat response update, which are those answers in a partial way that we receive from the AI. And the idea is that in the end, we're going to join all of those partial answers to form a final answer and add that to the list of messages. So let's see that now. We're going to say here await for each var response update in client get a streaming response async, and we're going to pass the list of messages, so messages, and also the chat options, so options. We put this here, we say updates at response update, and then we're going to say here for each var contents in response update contents. Now there are many kind of contents that the AI can send to us. For example, it could be an image. Therefore, we have to say if contents is text content, text content. So if the content is of type text content, then we're going to say console write. We're going to write on the console that text content. All right. Now after this, after we finish processing the answers from the AI, we're going to come here and say var response updates to chat response, and finally we can add that chat response to the list of messages so that we can get in the context the reply from the AI. So let me say here messages, add messages, response, and finally console write line to empty lines. Alright, and that's basically it. With this we're good to go. Control F5 to run our application. So let's come here and let me say here what is the capital city of Dominican Republic. Enter. Now we're going to get the answer, and as you can see, we have this answer here. It is basically ignoring the fact that we said that it should be brief, so whatever. And what about Canada, for example? Enter. Alright, now, sadly, this is not that smart. As you can see here, that is not even close to the question that I was asking, but that is the model's fault. In our case, our integration with Ollama is correct. Now, again, please keep in mind that as we said, there are different models here, and we choose a small model, which sometimes it is incorrect. If you need higher precision, then you may want to consider a bigger model like these ones that we have here, but always keeping in mind that they require more powerful hardware. Now, if we try again, let me see, let me copy this. If we try again, let me come here. Sometimes it usually works. Alright, let's see. Alright, Santo Domingo. What about Canada? Alright, now it did it. Excellent. But again, use a bigger model for better answers. But our job here is done. Let me know in the comments what my next tutorial should be. Thank you.